How do one of the challenges is data ingest, getting data in, and from a lot of different sources. Some of it is very, it's got legal boundaries on it. Other is different kinds of constraints. How do you think about all that data ingest, and what advice would you give to other people trying to do the similar kinds of work in a healthcare environment?
That's a great question. So high level, we have to navigate policies from centers of gravity like CMS. We need to navigate the policies of individual payers and individual facilities. And beyond that, because of the nature of our business, we need to navigate policies like the CCPA and other states that have followed suit since. And by the way, each one of those states may have their own version of the CCPA. So it may seem somewhat subjective, but we have our North Stars. And those North Stars are a member first orientation. So we put the member first as we design our platform, as we design our features and systems. We've all taken part in writing the policies from the ground up, and at every potential intersection, we've attempted to maximize trustability with our members and trustabilities with the payers and facilities that partner with us. And then I'd say that the last thing that we do is we make sure that member first spirit of our product and platform is communicated throughout, not only through our leadership, but down through every vertical, to our software engineers, to our data scientists, to our machine learning engineers. And we create leaders whenever we can. We've got a great team of folks all over the world working problems close to 24 hours a day, trying to navigate these policies and maximize the customer experience. CMS in 2024, speaking of customer experience, they've maximized the weighting for star measures around care coordination and transition of care because they recognize how important member experience is. And that's what some of these policies aim to do, is protect the member and maximize their experience while they're in this high stress arc of care.
So it sounds like the number one guy that you call it the North Star is keeping the member in mind first. But I thought it was also really interesting because you talked about trustability and not just trustability for the member, but also trustability for all of your partners. That because they're giving you access to data sets, you've got to be trustable both in how you touch those data sets, but also how you use and represent those data sets.
That's great. So I'll give you an example. There's a story. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but the story is important. It's about a father, I believe it was in Florida, who found out that his daughter was pregnant because she was getting advertisements for whatever it was, formula perhaps. And we thought about that same story as we designed and thought about our policies for marketing, for example. I don't want to be responsible for sending a targeted, personalized ad to a woman for a mastectomy bra who's in the arc of care for a breast cancer journey, when perhaps she hasn't shared that part of her life with whoever it may be, her children, for example, or whatever the case may be. So we've strategically chosen not to send personalized ads to folks based on their behavior within our platform. And, frankly, that may sacrifice some top line revenue, but it's an opportunity for us to build trust with our members, with our payers and facilities, people who depend on us.
I think it's critical. Absolutely critical is having that trustability. What other advice would you have for people about strategic partnerships around data? Because everyone talks partnerships and everyone talks data, but the challenge is in the details of that and in the execution of that, not in the hand waving part of it. So, what's your advice for people that are try and deal with healthcare data and try and deal with partners in a constructive way to share and use data in the service of the patient?
Well, that's a great question. The number one thing that I would say is actually internal and not external, and that's making sure that your team is data literate, that data is a part of the conversation and not an afterthought. And the reason for that is if you're all working from the same baseline, then it makes these conversations quite a bit easier. For example, I don't need to be in the room when someone's talking data assets with a strategic partner, for the first couple of conversations. And you're absolutely right. So leadership, in a past life, leadership can hear data and automatically think machine learning and recommendations, and it's easy. All you need is data. And that's rarely the case. The data has to be timely. It has to be relevant to the problem that you're trying to solve, although it may give you inspiration to solve additional problems.
And then, are there any, last pieces of advice you'd give people that are trying to work with data in healthcare? Because a lot of people are trying, a lot of people are struggling with it. You've been deep into it for a while. Are there any key mistakes that you'd encourage people not to make? It sounds like data literacy in the company is one. And are there any, kind of guiding lights that you use that you'd recommend beyond what we've already talked about?
Yeah. Well, for the tactical folks out there with their hands on the data, it's easy to get really excited about a new data set and then spend days exploring it. But I think you might arrive at better outcomes if you, again, have your goal in mind. If you're aligned with your leadership and with your strategic partners on the outcomes you're trying to achieve, then you can be more efficient and effective with your time. Another thing I'd say is when we talk about machine learning and data science, there's a lot of buzzwords that fly around out there, neural networks, and other, various complicated models. What I've found is the simpler models are, in most cases, every bit as accurate and useful for the goals that you're trying to achieve in real life. And beyond that, if you think about some of the simpler models that are less of a black box, where you can tease out which variables explain the most variance, or in other words, which variables are most critical to the decisions that you're trying to make or the information that you're trying to give your members. So fanciness should not be a goal when designing your team. And then this one being somewhat subjective, one of the things that we do in our organization is we develop and encourage leaders as often and as hard as we can. So when that comes to data science, whether someone's on my team as a Porter teammate, or they are a partner that we're working with, I make them a leader as fast as I can, so that they can solve problems independently, without a bottleneck or some oversight, because nothing will slow a data-driven organization down faster than having a vertical bottleneck. So I realize that's somewhat subjective, but sometimes the subjective things are more important than the math.
It's good. That's really interesting. So number one, it sounds like start from your goal of the data, not starting to get excited by just the data itself.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's like also, and the second is that you want to go and in many ways, simpler is better when it comes to models.
That's right.
Traceability and actions.
That's right. Yeah, and you're more likely to get buy-in from your leadership if you can talk them through how a decision is made at scale, which is really one of the main thrusts of data science, is making decisions at scale, whether they're small decisions, member facing or not. And you're more likely to get buy-in from your organization if you can explain what's going on.
Well, this has been really interesting. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. For listeners out there, I look forward to you attending further DTV episodes. And thank you again to Canon for spending time about how data science can be applied in the life sciences.
Yeah, thank you, Avery. I appreciate the opportunity. I've had fun.